So in this video, we're going to be comparing some low recoil assault rifles, the XM4 and the FARA, to let you know which one is the best. We did put a poll out on the channel asking you guys what kind of comparisons you wanted to see, and this one got the most votes. If you enjoy weapon stat breakdowns and weapon comparisons, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. We have Season 6 coming around the corner, we've also got Battlefield content as well, and Halo Infinite will be coming out soon, and we'll be looking to cover most of those games. And on top of that, make sure you click the link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post gameplay content over there as well. And like I said, this video is all about the XM4 and the FARA, as these are some low recoil options. And I do believe the Cold War weapons are still some of the best weapons in the game. You can get away with using some Modern Warfare guns like the Grau, even the M13 is okay as well. But I do still think most people will still opt to go for a Cold War gun, and that's because the movement and everything is just way better with these weapons. So you are going to get a slightly better weapon overall with the Cold War options. Now, let's quickly get into the kind of best class setups for these two guns, just to show you what we compared, and then we'll get into some stats. So for the XM4, we used the agency suppressor, the task force barrel, the axial 3x optic, the 60 round mags, then the field agent foregrip. Now this is pretty much the meta build for the XM4 for long range. Of course you can use this weapon in various different ways, but of course we're talking about low recoil long range rifles, and some people do use the 45 round mags. You do get a pretty good DPS with this anyway, but the 60 round mags is probably the best option, and that is because obviously you're going to have way more bullets, and if you do miss shots, it's not as bad if you miss it with the 60 round mag as if you did miss it with a 45 round mag. Then with the FARA, it's a very similar build actually. It's going to be the exact same GRU suppressor, Spetsnaz RPK barrel, and they did change the way these barrels affect recoil, and we'll take a look into that as well. The Spetsnaz grip, the 60 round mags again, and it's not the fast mags we're using here, it's the Spetsnaz mags, and then the axial 3x optic. So in our previous comparison video, which I'll link at the end of this one, we explained how we calculated all of our TTKs, and we managed to get TTKs based around where you actually land your shots and how consistently you land your shots in those locations. And we also done it based on KD. So if you want to see the full explanation for that, you could check out that video. There is a section in the timestamps for that. But what I want to quickly do just now is give a quick shout out to some of our viewers that helped us calculate some more stats. So previously we only had the KD for myself and my brother, but also joewo, who's over on Twitter, one of our followers and subscribers, which usually comments on some of our videos. He managed to give us some of his stats in game for Cold War. He's a 0.75 KD player, and on top of that we've got column Archalk. I don't know how you say this, column Archalk 77. Right, that's his username there. Again on Twitter and on YouTube, he usually comments on the videos, but he's a 2.35 KD player. So we've got a good mix of players now that we can do our comparison with. So let's actually break down the actual stats now. So first of all, we've got the FARA in this column right here. Then we've got the XM4. As you can see, we've got the damage profile up at the top. We've got the rate of fires right next to the weapons. We've also got the standard chest shot TTK as well as the DPS if you do want that. And then we've also got the mixed TTKs as well. So again, if you want to see how we've calculated all this stuff, you could just go watch the previous video. But first of all, when it comes to damage profiles, as you can see, both of these guns are quite close. I'd say the XM4 is a little bit better and a bit more consistent. Other than that, the FARA does have a slightly faster rate of fire, so that's how they've obviously balanced these weapons. When it comes to the chest shot TTK, which is the standard TTK most people calculate when they're trying to figure out which gun is the best, we've got a standard of 10 shots to kill, basically at close range and at long range with the FARA, and this gives you a pretty consistent TTK at 684 milliseconds. With the XM4, it takes 9 shots to kill at close range for chest shots, and then 10 shots to kill at long range, and then your TTKs are obviously scaled respectively as well. So 666 milliseconds at close range, 749 at long range. Your DPS is here as well if you do want that. Personally, I don't really like to consider DPS too much, but if you do want to factor that in, you absolutely can. The values are right there. So now let's move on into the mixed shot locations. So when it comes to the mixed shot locations, for myself, I'm the 1.4 KD player. Now, I'm most likely going to experience a 10 and then an 11 shot to kill. Now, the reason why it's not closer to obviously what you would get with the standard chest shot TTK is that even though I do land headshots into this mix, the rest of most of my shots are going to be hitting extremities, so it's still going to make that TTK longer even though you do land a headshot. So as you can see, across the board, across every player, they will be landing some amount of headshots into this mix here, but the rest of the shots are mainly extremities, so the likelihood is you're most likely going to experience that 684 TTK up close, and then it's going to be a 759 TTK at those longer ranges, because not everyone's just going to beam to the chest like a hacker basically. So then if we look at the XM4, this is where we see the most kind of difference. So if we look at myself and the 2.35 KD player, you can see the TTKs are quite similar. That's because it takes one less shot to kill at close and long range for myself and the 2.35 KD player. And that's because you are landing that headshot. And with the XM4, if you do land that single headshot, it does give you a significant advantage. So you do get a 583 millisecond TTK. And then at long range, you get 666 millisecond TTK if you land a headshot. So that's why a lot of people think the XM4 feels really good. On top of that, with the XM4, the neck shot multiplier is basically the same as a headshot multiplier. So you're almost going to feel like you're hitting a lot of headshots with this gun, even though in theory you might be hitting a neck shot. And it's just going to make it a bit more consistent to get this faster TTK, even for these players right here that have the slightly lower KD. Even though they do have the slower TTK, this is not factoring in neck shot, so they could still be getting a 583 millisecond TTK and a 666 millisecond TTK as well. It's just that we can't actually consider neck shots here because Cold War multiplayer doesn't have neck shots as a thing in the game. So if you are just landing chest shots and mixing it in with extremities and all that kind of stuff, these are the TTKs you would experience. But I wouldn't go solely off of this because, like I said, if you do land a neck shot, you could get very similar TTKs to what you would get with the XM4 as well, with a higher KD player. So if you are a little bit of a higher skilled player, you do land 1 or 2 headshots, then as you can see, the XM4 will kill about 100 milliseconds quicker. And I do think that's something you definitely need to consider. Even if you're a lower skilled player, you are going to get a slightly quicker TTK, but you know, it's not massively different. As you can see, if you have a slightly lower skill, you are going to get very similar TTKs in this case, and this might actually come down to which one just feels better to you at this point if you are a lower skill. So we've got the meta builds for both of these weapons as we shared at the start of the video. The reload time for the FARA is 2.6 seconds. It's pretty slow with the FARA for some reason. I don't know why it's this slow, but it is pretty slow. The XM4 is definitely much quicker. They both hold a 60 round mag. The bullet velocity is very similar. I would not really consider this as a factor when it comes to the bullet velocity of these weapons. And this is measured in meters per second, of course. And then we've got the ADS time. So the ADS time on the XM4 will be quicker, even with all the attachments stacked on, than the FARA. So when it comes to overall handling stats, the XM4 is by far and away the best. So the last thing I want to actually test is recoil, because they did change a lot of the barrel attachments. They have changed a lot of recoil on different weapons, and we want to see which one is the easiest to control, because that might differentiate which one you might want to choose. So we'll first start off with the XM4. We'll fire the full 60 rounds because both of these guns have 60 rounds anyway, and then what we'll do is we'll try and control it after that as well. So we'll fire the 60 rounds here, and then we'll fire the 60 rounds for the FARA, compare the recoil pattern. So let's see what the FARA looks like. And similarly, we're going to like basically try and control both of these guns, see which one's the easiest to control. But if we look at the recoil pattern here, you can see the XM4 is consistently just up and round like that, whereas the FARA goes up and then kind of goes round after. So it goes straight up and then round. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to manage because obviously the pattern is changing. And keep in mind, this is at about a 30 meter distance here, which most of your engagements will be around 30 to about 60 meters when it comes to assault rifles. Depending on which one you use, of course, you can beam at longer ranges, but it just kind of depends. Now, let's try and control this. So what you want to do is pull down and to the left a little bit with the XM4. And as you can see, we've got a pretty decent cluster of recoil right here. And then we'll do the same. It's kind of down and to the left as well, but not quite as much with the FARA. And as you can see here, I do think, personally, for me, the easiest weapon to control in this circumstance was the FARA. As you can see, when it went straight, that was this little section right here. So this little section right here was when it was straight. And then after it started curving upwards, this is the kind of cluster I got. With the XM4, it kind of went a little bit out here, but majority of the bullets were in this location right here. I do think the FARA is a little bit more accurate than the XM4 now. Previously, I think the XM4 was a little bit more accurate than the FARA, but now I think it's like the other way around. So if I had to pick in terms of recoil, I do think the FARA is a little bit easier to control. But both these weapons are relatively good to control, especially about 30 meters. As you can see, you will be landing most of your shots, and most enemies will be about this size of target anyway, especially at that range. And then same goes for the FARA. So personally, I think the FARA's the better recoil, but both of these guns are pretty accurate. So what's the final summary now? With both of these weapons, they're both pretty good, they're both pretty accurate. The XM4 does kill a little bit quicker if you do land one headshot. So if you are a pretty skilled player, you do land a headshot or even a neck shot into the mix. So even if you're a lower skilled player and you're not really hitting headshots, but you do hit the neck, you will get a slightly faster TTK. When it comes to recoil, both of these guns are relatively accurate still, even after all these kind of nerfs and buffs that have taken place with the barrels and the recoil and all that kind of thing. And overall kind of handling stats go to the XM4 as well. So overall, I'm going to have to give this one to the XM4. The recoil is not quite as good as the FARA, but everything else beats out the FARA pretty much. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. We do post extra gameplay content over there as well. And thank you very much for watching.